When one of the biggest movie stars on the planet walked into a luxury car dealership on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, nobody recognized him. And that was about to become a very big problem for the salesman. The man who walked through that glass door on a quiet Tuesday morning in October 2019 was wearing faded jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, and an old brown leather jacket that had seen better days. No fancy watch on his wrist. No bodyguards, and no assistant walking behind him with a phone pressed to their ear. Nothing about him said rich, nothing about him said famous. So the salesman did what he always did when someone like that walked in. He looked him up and down in about 8 seconds flat. He decided this guy was not worth his time. And when the man in the worn jacket asked, politely, quietly, with a smile, if he could take a $187,000 car out for a test drive, the salesman said no. He made up an excuse about appointments, and he talked about financial pre-qualifications. He pointed toward the door, and the man nodded once, said thanks, and walked out. Here is the part that should make your jaw drop. That man was Keanu Reeves, one of the most famous actors alive. A man worth $380 million. And what the salesman did not know, what nobody in that building knew yet, was that 3 weeks earlier, Keanu had quietly signed a document. A very important document. A one that gave him something no one in that dealership could have imagined. Something that was about to change everything. But here is what makes this story even bigger than you think. It is not really about Keanu getting revenge. It is not really about the salesman losing his job. It is about a young woman sitting at a desk in the corner of that showroom who saw everything happen and made one small, brave decision that ended up changing her entire life. Watch this whole video, and because what happens next is one of the most satisfying, surprising, and genuinely moving stories we have ever told. And the ending? You will not see it coming. It is a Tuesday morning in October 2019. The sun is already warm over Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood, California. The sky is the kind of clear blue that makes the city look like it was built just for that day. The air smells like fresh coffee, car wax, and the quiet kind of money that never needs to announce itself. Luxury car dealerships line both sides of the street like expensive picture frames. All glass, all chrome, all designed to make regular people feel like they wandered into a place that was not built for them. One of those dealerships is called Platinum Motor Works. Inside, the carpet is so clean and white it feels wrong to walk on it. The cars on the showroom floor sit under soft golden lights, each one looking less like something you drive and more like something you worship. And the price tags are printed in small, tasteful fonts, as if the numbers themselves are embarrassed by how large they are. 3 salespeople are on the floor this morning. Their names are Derek Munson, Craig Aldridge, and Tasha Novak. Derek is 34 years old. He has worked at Platinum Motor Works for 6 years. He is the kind of man who believes he can read a person completely in 8 seconds. Just from their shoes, their watch, the way they carry their shoulders when they walk through a door. So he has built his entire career on this belief. By the numbers on the board behind Phil Cranton's office door, he is the dealership's top salesperson. He is proud of this. He talks about it often. He is also, on this particular Tuesday morning, about to be wrong in a way he will not forget for the rest of his life. Craig keeps his head down and stays near the coffee machine. Tasha is newer, only 8 months into the job, still learning how the floor works, still watching how Derek moves through a room like he already owns it. At exactly 9:47 a.m., the glass front door opens. A man walks in. He is wearing dark jeans, slightly faded at the knees, a plain gray t-shirt, a brown leather jacket that has seen 100 roads, not worn out, but lived in, The kind of jacket that carries memories in its creases. His dark hair is pushed back loosely. He is not wearing a watch. He carries no bag, no folder, nothing that signals he came here ready to spend money. He looks, by every surface measure, like someone who is just looking. The man moves slowly across the showroom floor. His eyes are calm and curious. He stops in front of a deep blue sports car near the center of the room. It retails for $187,000. He tilts his head slightly, the way a person does when they are genuinely thinking, not putting on a show for anyone. He crouches down near the rear wheel. He reaches out and runs one hand slowly along the door panel. Carefully, respectfully. The way you touch something you actually care about. Derek watches from across the room. He does not move toward the man. Not yet. He is doing his 8-second read, and the read is already finished. Tasha starts to stand up from her desk. Derek raises one hand, low, barely visible, and stops her without a word. "I've got this," the hand says. Or more honestly, "This isn't worth our time." And the man near the car does not see any of this. He is still looking at the car like it is the only thing in the room. His name is Keanu Reeves. He is 55 years old. He is one of the most recognized faces on the planet. He has a net worth of approximately $380 million. And right now, in this showroom, on this Tuesday morning, not a single person in the building knows who he is. That is about to become the most expensive mistake Derek Munson has ever made. Derek Munson straightens his tie. He picks up his coffee cup, takes one slow sip, sets it back down. Then he crosses the showroom floor toward the man in the worn jacket. He takes his time doing it, not because he is busy, but because making a customer wait is a technique. It puts the salesperson in control. It says, "You came to me, not the other way around." It works on serious buyers. On someone like Keanu Reeves, standing quietly beside a $187,000 car, it is just delay wearing a suit. Derek stops about 4 feet away. He's close enough to talk, far enough to keep things cool. He offers a smile, the professional one, smooth and practiced, the smile of a man who has used it 10,000 times and never once asked himself if it was real. "Can I help you find something?" he asks. The words are polite. The tone underneath them is not. The tone underneath them says, "Can I figure out how fast to get you out of here?" Keanu looks up from the car. He smiles back. The other kind of smile. The one that starts in the eyes first and moves outward. The smile of a man who has absolutely nothing to prove and knows it. "I was just looking at this one," he says. "Is this the new model?" "It is," Derek says. "Just came in 3 weeks ago. Flagship piece this quarter." He pauses for exactly the right amount of time. "Are you looking for something specific, or just browsing?" The word browsing is not an accident. In the language of high-end showroom floors, browsing is a closed door dressed up as an open question. It means, "I have already decided you are not a buyer. I am giving you a polite way to confirm it." Keanu does not flinch. He does not blink. He simply says, in the same easy, unhurried voice, "I'd love to take it for a drive, actually, if that's possible." Something shifts behind Derek's eyes. It is small and fast, like a door closing in a room far back in a house. He glances, just once, just briefly, at the worn jacket, and at the faded denim, at the empty wrist where a watch should be. His brain runs the calculation it has been trained to run, and it returns an answer Derek is comfortable with. "Test drives," he says carefully, "are something we arrange for clients who are seriously considering a purchase. We do require a few things: proof of insurance, a valid license, and we run a brief financial pre-qualification. Just a formality. He delivers the last three words in a tone that makes very clear it is not a formality at all. Sure, Keanu says. That makes sense. He reaches into the pocket of the worn jacket and produces a California driver's license. He holds it out. Derek takes it. He looks down at the name printed in clean, state-issued type. Keanu Charles Reeves. Something almost happens in Derek's face. His eyes move across the name, linger for just a beat longer than a name usually gets. And then, nothing. He has committed to his read of this situation. Committed men do not reverse course easily. Commitment has a weight to it, and that weight, once moving, does not stop for small things like names on a license. He hands it back. The pre-qualification is something our finance manager handles, he says. I could set up a meeting for later this week. Today is a little tight. We have appointments scheduled. This is not true. The showroom is empty. Craig is on his second cup of coffee. Tasha is sitting at her desk with a pen in her hand and nothing on the page in front of her, because she stopped pretending to write the moment Derek crossed the floor. She has been watching this entire conversation with the particular stillness of a person who recognizes something wrong but has not yet decided what to do about it. Keanu holds his license for a moment. He looks at Derek, not with anger, not with the heat of someone about to make a scene, and with something quieter. The look of a man who has been in this exact room before, not this building, not this car, but this moment, and who understands precisely what it is and where it comes from. Is there someone else who might be able to help me today? He asks. Derek gestures loosely toward the front desk near the entrance. You're welcome to leave your information and we'll follow up with you. There is a pause. 3 seconds, maybe 4. In those seconds, Tasha Novak feels something she cannot name yet. Something that sits at the bottom of the chest, heavy and warm at the same time. The specific discomfort of watching a moment happen that you know is going to matter long after today. Keanu tucks the license back into the worn jacket. Thanks, he says. Just that one word. No edge in it, no performance. Just a single quiet word from a man who has chosen, for now, not to say all the other things he could say. And he turns and walks toward the glass door. It opens. He steps through. It closes behind him with a soft, clean sound. The kind of sound that, in the silence it leaves, feels much louder than it actually was. Derek turns back to the empty showroom. He smooths the front of his jacket. Some people just like to look, he says, to no one in particular. His voice carries the easy confidence of a man who believes he has just made the right call. Across the room, Tasha says nothing. But her hand is already moving toward her phone. Tasha Novak does not pull up social media. She does not text a friend. She does not take a photo of the glass door still settling in its frame and post it somewhere with a caption that would make her famous for 48 hours. She is not that kind of person, and this is not that kind of moment. Not yet, anyway. She opens a search engine and types 2 words. Keanu Reeves. She is not confirming his name. She already knows his name. She recognized his face the moment he walked through that door. Not from the red carpet, not from a magazine cover, but from a drive-in theater in Bakersfield, California, where she was 17 years old on a first date that was going badly until the movie started. The movie was John Wick. The date was forgettable. The man on the screen was not. She had watched Speed with her mother on a rainy Sunday afternoon when she was 12. You curled up on a couch that had a broken spring on the left side that everyone in the family had learned to avoid. She had read a long profile of him in The New Yorker during her lunch break 3 months ago, the one that described how, after The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions came out in 2003, and he earned somewhere in the region of $35 million from the sequels alone, he quietly redirected a significant portion of his earnings to the special effects and costume design teams. And the people who built the world of that film with their hands for years and received no percentage of what it made. He gave it to them without calling a press conference, without a publicist releasing a statement. The story only came out because one of the crew members mentioned it in an interview years later, almost as an afterthought. Tasha had read that, and then sat very still for a moment in the break room, thinking about what it said about a person. Not the amount, but the silence around it. She knew exactly who had just walked into this building. She also knew exactly what Derek had just done. What she is searching for now, phone low on the desk so Derek cannot see the screen from across the room, is something smaller and more specific. A detail she half remembers reading somewhere. A thread she needs to pull before she decides what to do with it. She types a second search. Keanu Reeves Motorcycle Company, Los Angeles, and the results come back in less than a second. Arch Motorcycle Company, co-founded in 2011. Keanu Reeves and master builder Gard Hollinger. Based in the Arts District, Los Angeles, California. Custom hand-built motorcycles. Starting price, $78,000. She reads the page slowly. She follows a link. Then another. She is looking for something particular, something she cannot quite remember but knows she read. The way you know a word is in your vocabulary even when it won't come to the surface. Or she finds it in a trade publication from 2 weeks earlier. She reads it once. Then she reads it again. Then she puts her phone face down on the desk and looks up at the ceiling for a moment, the way people do when information has just rearranged something inside them that needs a second to settle. Outside, on Sunset Boulevard, Keanu Reeves is in no hurry. He walks north along the sidewalk, hands in the pockets of the worn jacket, passing a juice bar and a parking attendant and a woman walking a dog that looks like it costs more than most people's cars. Nobody stops him. Nobody looks twice. The city moves around him the way it always does, fast, certain of itself, too busy to notice who it is brushing past. He stops at a crosswalk and waits for the light. He takes out his phone and calls a man named Gard Hollinger. Gard answers on the second ring. In the background, now there is the faint sound of metal on metal, the particular music of a workshop where things are being made by hand, slowly and with great care. The Arch Motorcycle Facility in the Arts District, where every bike begins as a raw idea and ends, months later, as something that feels less like a machine and more like a living thing. "Hey," Keanu says. "Hey." Gard's voice is warm, slightly rough, the voice of a man who spends more time building things than talking about them. Or how did it go? A pause. On Keanu's end, the crosswalk signal chirps, and he steps off the curb. "They didn't let me test drive it." There is a beat of silence. Then Gard laughs. Not a mean laugh, not a laugh at anyone's expense, but the specific laugh of someone who has heard different versions of this same story, about his famous, deeply unassuming partner, and still finds it quietly, sadly, funny every time. Was it the jacket? The jacket and no watch. "Classic," Gard says. Then, say more gently, "You want me to make a call? I know someone at the regional office." The light on Keanu's side of the street is green now. He crosses slowly, watching the traffic. "Not yet," he says. "Let me think about it." They talk for another minute about nothing important. A part that came in for a build they've been working on, a test ride scheduled for the end of the week. Then Keanu hangs up and slides the phone back into the pocket of the jacket. He walks another half block and stops outside a small diner with a hand-painted sign and two stools visible through the window. He goes inside. He sits down at the counter. He orders a coffee and a piece of pie from a woman named Donna, who does not recognize him and calls him Hon, and refills his cup without being asked. He sits with his thoughts. He is thinking about a meeting, a conference room in Hawthorne, California, 3 weeks ago. A long table, a document with clean, precise language, and a signature line near the bottom with his name already printed beneath it in small, formal letters. He had read every page. He had asked 2 questions. He had picked up the pen. He had signed it. The announcement had not gone public yet. It would. Soon. But right now, in a dealership 2 blocks south, a salesman named Derek Munson is straightening his jacket and telling himself he made the right call. And at a desk inside that same dealership, a young woman named Tasha Novak is staring at her phone with the expression of someone who has just understood something, completely, quietly, and all at once. What Tasha had found on her phone was this. A trade publication called Automotive Industry Weekly had published a short article on October 3, 2019, 13 days before Keanu Reeves walked into Platinum Motor Works in a worn leather jacket and asked politely for a test drive. The article was not front-page news. It was not the kind of story that gets picked up by entertainment websites or morning television. It was 7 paragraphs long, written in the dry, factual language of business journalism, buried between a piece about electric vehicle tariffs and an advertisement for fleet management software. The headline read, "Strategic Investment Partnership Signals New Direction for Luxury Auto Division." Tasha had read all 7 paragraphs. In the 5th one, deep between a sentence about projected Q4 output and a comment from an unnamed board member, was a name. His name. The article confirmed that Keanu Charles Reeves had entered a formal investment partnership with the manufacturing group responsible for producing the exact line of vehicles that Platinum Motor Works was licensed to sell. The nature of the deal gave him a significant ownership stake in the production facilities. It also gave him a seat on the Strategic Advisory Board, a position that, in plain language, meant he had a direct line to the people who decided which dealerships kept their licensing agreements and which ones did not. He did not just own one of the cars on the showroom floor. He owned part of the factory that built them. Tasha had sat with that information for the rest of Tuesday. She had not said anything to Derek. She had not said anything to Phil Cranton, who had spent the afternoon in his office on the phone, unaware that the most consequential walk-in customer of the year had left the building 90 minutes earlier without being offered a glass of water. She had driven home quietly. She had made dinner. She had not slept well. Wednesday morning arrives gray and cool, the marine layer sitting low over West Hollywood the way it does in October when the Santa Ana winds have not yet come to burn it away. Derek Munson pulls into the Platinum Motor Works parking lot at 8:43 a.m. He is in a good mood, and he has a 10:30 appointment with a returning client, a tech consultant from Brentwood who has bought 2 cars from him in the past 4 years. He has his coffee. He has his plan for the day. He does not yet know that his day already has a different plan for him. At 9:02 a.m., his phone rings. The name on the screen is Phil Cranton. Phil does not call salespeople in the morning. Phil sends emails, or he walks to the floor and speaks in person. Or he waits until the weekly meeting on Fridays where everything uncomfortable gets addressed in the careful group language of performance metrics. A 9 a.m. phone call is not part of any of those systems. Derek answers. "Can you come to my office?" Phil says. No good morning, no preamble. 3 words that in any workplace, in any industry, carry the specific gravity of a door being shut before an important conversation. "Sure," Derek says. "Everything okay?" Phil has already hung up. Phil Cranton's office is small for a man who has run this location for 11 years. One window facing the parking lot, a desk with too much paper on it, a framed photograph of a car he sold in 2012 that he is inexplicably still proud of. He is sitting behind the desk when Derek walks in, and he is doing the thing that experienced managers do when the situation has already moved past the point where raising a voice would help anyone. He is completely, deliberately calm. "Do close the door," Phil says. Derek closes it. He sits down across from Phil without being asked, because his legs have made the decision before his brain has fully caught up with what is happening. Phil turns his computer monitor around without a word. On the screen is an email. It arrived at 7:14 that morning, sent from a corporate address 2 levels above Phil's pay grade. It is addressed to him personally. It is 4 sentences long. Derek leans forward and reads it. Oh, his face does not collapse all at once. It does something slower and more honest than that. It changes the way a room changes when the light in it shifts, feature by feature, degree by degree, until the man sitting in the chair across from Phil Cranton looks considerably less certain of himself than the man who walked through the parking lot 12 minutes ago with a coffee and a plan for the day. The email confirmed everything: the investment, the ownership stake, the advisory board seat, and then, in the 3rd sentence, 6 words that no corporate email should ever have to contain, but occasionally must. "Mr. Reeves visited your location yesterday." Phil lets the silence sit in the room for a long moment. He has earned this silence. He is going to use it. "He owns part of the factory," Phil says finally. His voice is even, almost gentle. "The factory that builds every car we sell." Derek opens his mouth. Phil raises one hand. Flat, steady, final. "I don't need an explanation right now, Derek." He folds his hands on the desk. "What I need is for you to sit here for a moment and understand the full size of what happened in this building yesterday." Derek closes his mouth. Outside the office window, through the glass, the showroom floor is quiet and still. The deep blue car sits under its golden light exactly where it was yesterday morning. Tasha Novak is already at her desk, 20 minutes early, and with a cup of coffee she has not touched and a blank email draft open on her screen. The cursor blinking in the to field like a small, patient question. She has been trying to figure out what to write for the past 40 minutes. The email draft has been opened and closed 4 times already. Tasha knows what she wants to say. That is not the problem. The problem is that she has spent her entire life in rooms where she was the person being measured by a quick glance. The girl from Bakersfield, the scholarship kid, the new one on the floor who still has to prove she belongs here. And she knows, in a way that lives in the body rather than the brain, how it feels to be dismissed before you have said a single word. She also knows how rare it is for someone to notice that dismissal and say something about it. Most people say nothing. Not because they are bad people, but because saying something costs more than staying quiet. And the world has a way of making the cost very clear to people who can least afford it. Tasha has stayed quiet in rooms before. She is not proud of it. She understands why she did it. And she has been sitting with the specific, low-grade weight of having done it again yesterday, having recognized Keanu Reeves, having watched Derek perform his 8-second read, having felt that stop signal of a hand and obeyed it without a word. And she is tired of how familiar that weight feels. And she puts her fingers on the keyboard. She begins to type. The email is not long. It is not a complaint. It does not mention Derek's name or ask for anything in return. It is addressed to a contact address she found on the website of the Keanu Reeves Fund, the charitable organization he has run quietly for years, funding cancer research and children's hospitals, named not after himself in the usual celebrity fashion, but simply after the work it does. She found it in 30 seconds. Oh, it was not hidden. He had never tried to make it hard to find. She writes that she was in the showroom yesterday. She writes that she recognized him immediately. She writes that she watched what happened and did not speak up, and that she has been thinking about that choice ever since, and that she is sorry, not on behalf of the dealership, not in the managed corporate way that Phil Cranton will eventually craft into an official apology letter, but personally, as one person to another. I should have said something, she writes. I didn't. I've been sitting with that since yesterday afternoon, and I didn't want to sit with it any longer without telling you. She reads it back once. She presses send before she can change her mind. Then she picks up her coffee cup, finds it cold, and walks to the break room to make a fresh one, passing Derek's empty desk on the way. His 10:30 appointment has been rescheduled. His morning has taken a different shape than he planned. Here is something that is documented and true and reported across dozens of interviews and profiles and first-hand accounts spanning 30 years of public life. Keanu Reeves answers his own messages. Not everyone, not always quickly, but the people who have worked with him, crew members from film sets, builders at the Arch Motorcycle Workshop in the Arts District, staff at the hospitals his foundation supports, strangers who happen to sit next to him on a New York City subway at 2 in the morning, they all say the same thing in different words. When he responds, it is him, not an assistant, not a publicist managing tone and liability. Him, his actual attention, arriving in your inbox or your voicemail like something slightly improbable, a reminder that the distance between famous and human is sometimes smaller than the world wants you to believe. Tasha's email arrives at the fund's administrative inbox on Wednesday morning. Normally, messages from unfamiliar addresses with dealership email domains are logged, acknowledged with a polite template, and filed. There are hundreds of messages a month. The small team that manages the inbox is careful and kind, but they are also practical. But this one is flagged, not because of who Tasha is, because of what she mentions, and the admin who reads it recognizes the reference to the incident immediately. Word had already moved quietly through certain channels after the corporate email landed in Phil Cranton's inbox that morning. The message is pulled from the general queue and forwarded with a single line of internal note attached. Thought you should see this one. It reaches Keanu on Thursday evening. He is at home in the Hollywood Hills, out in the apartment that consistently surprises people who visit it for the first time. No staff, no grand entrance, a kitchen that looks used, a bookshelf that looks red, a motorcycle helmet on a small table near the door next to a set of keys, and a paperback novel left open and face down at page 214. The kind of home that belongs to a person rather than a persona. He reads the email once, quickly. Then he sets his phone down and looks out the window for a moment. And then he picks it back up and reads it again, this time slowly. The way you read something when you are not just processing words, but listening to the person behind them. He has received apologies before, many of them. Some from people who were sorry, and some from people who were sorry they got caught, and some from corporate communications teams who had turned apology into a genre with its own grammar and its own careful distance from actual feeling. He knows the difference, and he has always known the difference. This is not any of those things. This is a young woman who stayed quiet in a room when she should have spoken, and has been honest enough with herself to admit it. To him, A stranger, with no guarantee of anything in return, no angle, no ask, just the plain, uncomfortable truth of a person who looked at their own silence and did not like what they saw. He opens a reply. He begins to write. And it takes him a while, longer than a short email usually takes, because there is something he wants to say that keeps coming out in the wrong shape. Something about his sister Kim, and the years when she was sick, and how that time rearranged everything he thought he understood about what mattered and what didn't, and how the people who showed up in those years were never the ones with the right credentials or the right appearance. And they were simply the ones who decided that honesty was worth more than comfort. He writes for 20 minutes. He reads it back. He makes one small change near the end. Then he signs it the way he always signs personal messages. Not with his full name, not with a title, just 2 letters that belong to a person rather than a public figure. K. He presses send, and he does not know yet, cannot know yet, that the reply he has just written is going to change the shape of Tasha Novak's life in a direction neither of them has planned. He does not know about the idea already forming, slowly and quietly, in a conversation happening 2 floors above the Arch Motorcycle Workshop in the Arts District, between a small team of people who have been trying for months to find the right person to help them build something new. He does not know any of that yet, but the email is sent. And somewhere across the city, at a desk in a showroom on Sunset Boulevard, a young woman's phone is about to light up with a notification she will remember for the rest of her life. The notification arrives at 7:48 on Friday morning. Tasha is not at her desk when it happens. She is sitting in her car in the Platinum Motorworks parking lot, engine off, watching the marine layer burn slowly off the hills to the north. She gets to work 20 minutes early most days, not to impress anyone, but because those 20 minutes before the building fills up are the only part of the day that feel entirely her own. She drinks her coffee. She thinks. She prepares herself for whatever the floor is going to ask of her. This morning, her phone buzzes once against the center console. She glances at it the way you glance at things you are not expecting, without urgency, without anticipation. A reflex, not a decision. Then she sees the sender's name. She picks the phone up with both hands. She reads the email standing outside her car in the parking lot, one hand pressed flat against the roof, to steady herself without knowing she is doing it. The morning air is cool against her face. Somewhere on the boulevard, a truck is making a delivery. A bird is going through the same 3 notes over and over in a tree above the entrance. The ordinary world is continuing at its ordinary pace, and completely indifferent to the fact that something is happening to Tasha Novak right now that she does not yet have the right words for. The email is longer than she expected. He writes about his sister Kim, about the years between 1991 and the early 2000s when leukemia moved through her life like a slow and terrible tide, and how during that time the people who mattered most were never the ones who arrived with the right things to say. They were the ones who simply showed up and told the truth about what they saw. He writes that kindness without honesty is just comfort, and comfort without truth is just distance wearing a warm coat. He writes that he has been in rooms like that showroom many times, before the films, after the films, during the years in between when his life was not the thing people imagined it to be from the outside. And he writes that what he always notices in those rooms is never the person who makes the wrong call. People make wrong calls, and that is ordinary. And ordinary things are not interesting. What he notices is the person nearby who sees the wrong call being made and feels the cost of saying nothing. You felt that cost, he writes, and then you sat down and wrote to me anyway. That took something real. I don't want to let it go unacknowledged. He does not offer her anything, and he does not make a promise. There is no grand gesture wrapped inside the words, no career-changing reveal tucked into the final paragraph like a plot point. It is simply one person telling another person, I saw what you did. It mattered. The last line before he signs off reads, the silence in rooms like that one has a sound. You heard it. That's rarer than you think. Then, Tasha reads it 3 times in the parking lot. On the third read, standing in the cool October air with her coffee going cold in her other hand, she starts to cry. Not the loud, collapsing kind of crying. The quiet kind. The kind that comes when something touches a place inside you that has been waiting, without your knowledge, to be touched. Not sadness, not relief. Something closer to recognition. The feeling of being seen by someone who had every reason in the world to look away. She stands there for a long moment, and then she wipes her face with the back of her hand, picks up her coffee, and walks toward the glass door of the dealership. She has a job to do, but she also has something she did not have yesterday, something small and solid and hers, sitting quietly at the center of her chest, like a stone that has been warmed by a long afternoon of sun. Inside, through the glass, she can see the deep blue car still sitting under its golden light, still waiting. Still exactly where it was on Tuesday morning, when a man in a worn jacket crouched beside it and touched the door panel like it deserved to be taken seriously. She pushes open the door. She goes to her desk. She does not yet know what is coming next, but something is. 3 weeks pass. October becomes November. The marine layer gives way to the dry, electric heat of Santa Ana winds that sweep down through the canyons and make the whole city feel like it is holding its breath. And the leaves on the trees along Sunset Boulevard go rust-colored at their edges. The hills turn gold. Life at Platinum Motor Works continues the way life in most places continues after something significant has happened. On the surface, the same. Underneath, permanently different. Derek Munson comes to work every day. He parks in the same spot. He drinks the same coffee. He makes his calls and works his appointments and hits numbers that are slightly lower than they were before. Not in the way that a person's numbers go slightly lower when something has quietly rearranged their confidence without their permission. He does not talk about the Tuesday in October anymore. Nobody asks him to. Phil Cranton has moved through the situation with the careful, damage-limiting efficiency of a man who has managed difficult things before and understands that the goal is not resolution, but continuity. There have been internal reviews. There have been emails with phrases like customer experience alignment and unconscious bias awareness. There has been a performance improvement plan placed in Derek's file, signed and dated, and filed in a cabinet that everyone hopes stays closed. The deep blue car is gone from the showroom floor. It was sold on a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks ago, to a man in a worn leather jacket who paid in full and signed the paperwork at Tasha Novak's desk. He shook her hand before he left. He said the rear suspension was everything she said it would be. Then he walked out to where the car was waiting in the afternoon light and drove away, and the showroom went back to being a showroom, and the day went back to being a day. Tasha has thought about that afternoon many times in the 3 weeks since. She is thinking about it again on a Wednesday evening in early November, when her phone buzzes on the kitchen table beside a half-eaten bowl of pasta and a textbook she has been meaning to return to the public library for 6 weeks. She picks up the phone. She does not recognize the email address. It is not the SBK administrative address she wrote to before. It is a different address, more formal, with a domain name she has to read twice before it registers. The sender's name is Renata Osei, and the subject line reads, "A conversation, if you're open to it." Tasha reads the email slowly. Renata Osei is the Director of External Partnerships for the Keanu Reeves Fund. Her email is formal and precise and warm in the specific way that careful people are warm, measured, intentional, nothing wasted. She explains that the fund is in the early stages of launching a new initiative, scheduled to begin in January 2020. A financial literacy program aimed at young adults from low-income backgrounds entering business and sales careers. The kind of program designed not to teach people how money works in textbooks, but how it works in rooms, how it is used to include people and exclude them, how it disguises itself in the language of formality and process, how to recognize the moment when a system is being used against you, and what to do when that moment arrives. They are looking, Renata writes, for someone to help build the curriculum from the inside out. Not an academic, not a consultant with a business degree and a clean resume. Someone who has sat on both sides of that particular experience, who knows what it feels like to be measured by a glance, and who has chosen, at personal cost, to do something other than absorb that quietly. The email ends with a single sentence that Tasha has to set her phone down after reading. Mr. Reeves suggested we reach out to you specifically. Here she sits at her kitchen table for a long time. She thinks about her mother, who worked double shifts in a hospital laundry for 11 years and never once complained about the weight of it. Only about the days when the people she served looked through her like glass. She thinks about the scholarship and Cal State Northridge and the particular loneliness of being the first person in a room who looks like you. She thinks about a stop signal made with one hand across a showroom floor, and how she had obeyed it, and how that obedience had sat in her chest for days, like something she owed herself an apology for. And then she thinks about a parking lot, a cool October morning, an email that arrived when she was not expecting anything and gave her something she did not know she needed. She picks her phone back up. She types her reply in 4 minutes. It is the fastest she has ever written anything important. "I'll be there," she writes. The meeting is held on the second Tuesday of December 2019, in a small conference room on the second floor of a building in the Arts District of Los Angeles. Below, through a window that looks down onto the workshop floor, hand-built motorcycles sit in various stages of becoming. Raw frames beside finished machines, each one a different chapter of the same long sentence about what it means to make something with your hands and your full attention. Keanu Reeves is in the room when Tasha arrives, and he is wearing dark jeans and a plain gray shirt. No watch. He stands up when she comes in and shakes her hand and says, "It is good to meet her properly," and his voice has the same quality his email had, direct and unhurried, the voice of a man who has decided that the most respectful thing you can give another person is your actual presence. They talk for 2 hours, not about the dealership, not about Derek, not about the moment in October that brought them both to this table. And they talk about the program, about what it should teach, and how it should feel, and who it should reach, and what it means to walk into a room where the architecture of the space has been designed, consciously or not, to remind you that you do not belong. Tasha has things to say. Important things, specific things, the kind of things that only come from having lived inside a particular experience, rather than studied it from the outside. She says them. He listens, not the polite, on surface-level listening of someone waiting for their turn to speak, but the real kind, the kind that changes the shape of what you say next, because you can feel that it is actually landing. At the end of the 2 hours, Renata Osei slides a folder across the table. Tasha opens it. The financial literacy program launches in February 2020. It reaches 340 young adults in its first cycle, running across sites in Bakersfield and East Los Angeles. The core curriculum includes a module that Tasha writes almost entirely herself, working at her kitchen table after shifts, long after the city has gone quiet outside her window. She calls it the Invisible Wealth Test. It teaches students to identify the bias of visible wealth signals in professional environments. It teaches them what Derek Munson's 8-second read actually is, where it comes from, and why it is wrong. Not as a moral argument, but as a practical one. It teaches them that the man in the worn jacket is always in the room, in one form or another, and that how you treat him is the only test that actually measures anything true about you. 340 people take the module in the first cycle. By the end of 2020, the number is over 1,000. Derek Munson leaves Platinum Motorworks in January 2020. He now manages a used car lot in Burbank. Whether he has thought about the Tuesday in October, whether it has settled into him the way important things eventually settle, is something only he can answer. Some lessons arrive loudly and leave quietly. Some do the opposite. Most take longer than a story has room for. Tasha Novak is still in sales. She is very good at it, not because she learned to read people in 8 seconds, but because she learned to stop doing that and start listening instead, which turns out to be a much more reliable method. And Keanu Reeves still rides motorcycles through the canyons above Los Angeles on early mornings when the roads are empty and the light is new. He still takes the subway when he is in New York. He still eats at diners alone sometimes, and leaves tips that make servers stop and look at the table twice after he has gone. He still answers some of his own messages. He still wears the worn jacket, on a small hook near the door of his apartment in the Hollywood Hills, just beside a motorcycle helmet and a paperback novel and a set of house keys. There is a key fob for a deep blue car. And if you knew what to look for, and you looked at it long enough, you might notice that it sits exactly at eye level. Not displayed, not hidden, just there, in the ordinary place where things you want to remember tend to end up. The cliffhanger was never really about the factory, and it was never about the ownership stake or the corporate email or the 4 devastating sentences that arrived in Phil Cranton's inbox at 7:14 on a Wednesday morning. Those things are satisfying in the way that justice is satisfying, clean and proportional and complete. But the real story was always smaller and more important than that. It was about a young woman sitting at a desk, watching a door close behind someone who deserved better, and feeling the full weight of her own silence. And then deciding, quietly and without any guarantee of anything, that she was not willing to carry that weight indefinitely. She wrote one honest email to a stranger. The stranger happened to own part of the factory. But even if he hadn't, even if he was exactly what Derek Munson decided he was in 8 seconds, a man in a worn jacket with no watch and nothing worth the dealership's time, the email still would have been the right thing to send. And the lesson still would have been true. The moment still would have mattered. That is the whole story. Not the factory. The email. Before you go, drop a comment below and tell us where you are watching from. We have people tuning in from all over the world, and we love seeing where our stories are reaching. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you that small acts of honesty can change everything, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps more people find stories like this one. And if you believe the world could use a little more kindness, a little more courage, and a lot less judging people by what they are wearing, subscribe to this channel. Every single story we tell is built around that idea. You will not regret it. Now go ahead and click the video appearing on your screen right now. We picked it just for you. And we think you are going to love it just as much as this one. We will see you there.